Yay. Hey there, friends. I'm recording this for you on Sunday. We have the eclipse tomorrow, April 8th. I had to think what the date was. So I'm going to record a short book club for you for our April title, Throwing Bones, Crystal Stones, and Curios by Mystic Dylan. That includes 20 unique casting boards for divination and insight. So normally we would have book club on Mondays, but we have the eclipse tomorrow, and we've decided to let the store be closed tomorrow because typically when there's an eclipse, we're not that busy. Even though we're just at like 95%, it should still be pretty amazing. Hopefully the clouds will stay off long enough for us to see that. So let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be doing the intro through page 39. Next Monday we're going to be doing page 40 through, let's see, 40 through 75. I just want to make sure I told you the right number. So we're just going to finish it up in like 3 lives or 3 recordings. So I always tell you guys I love a pretty book. And the printer in me wants to point out that this actually is a perfect bound book. I'm going to show you real quick because I'm a nerd like that. Do you see this? Do you see the threads here in the middle? That's how you can tell it's a perfect bound book. Sorry, I just like a well-made book. So it begins with Mystic Dylan, of course, gives you a little background on him. He has been doing this for quite a while. He says, born from Cuban, Irish, German, and Native American bloodlines. And he also acknowledges his ancestors. He co-hosts the podcast Life's a Witch and co-owns Three Crows Crossroads, an online store, and is the co-founder of a brick and mortar shop, the Old World Emporium. So just a little, I always think it's important to give you a little info about your author when we get into something like that. So the introduction kind of goes through different forms of divination, why you might want to use it. He introduces the term cleromancy, Cleromancy, which is one of the many mancies we're going to be talking about through here. So it's all about the throwing of bones, curios, and things like that. So when we get into the introduction, Mystic Dylan introduces us to cleromancy, again, throwing bones, casting fortunes, also known as casting lots, which is also found in the Bible. So he goes into that a little bit. I thought it was very interesting. Like a lot of times when people think about throwing bones or throwing lots, they think they need to go buy a kit somewhere. And he definitely reinforces the idea that these are like found totems for you. So it may be bones, it may be something that's important to you. Like as I flipped through here, there's a picture of like an RPG die. Like if you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, like I would recognize that. So that can be in there, and like basically saying that it's up to you to collect your lots or your bones or your curios, because those will have different meanings for you. So don't feel like when you do this, all of your bones have to be bones per se. They can be found objects, curios, things like that. He does reference, like I said, in the Bible. There's a little bit I pulled out here. It says, despite the usage in the Bible and acceptance in the early church, under the Christian Roman emperors, divination became strictly associated with witchcraft, magic, and paganism. And around that time in the 4th century CE, current era, Augustine of Hippo, also known as Saint Augustine, similarly decreed that all forms of divination and anything linked to the old Roman religion was sorcery and therefore illegal. So that influenced both church and state. I like the fact that he talks about different divination techniques in here, not just tarot and runes, but we've talked a little bit before about cracking an egg into water and reading the egg. We've talked about smoke divination when we've talked about flame messages. Any of you guys that are new, hang on 2 seconds. If you're new to the book club, so like a flame message would be, normally I have a lighter down here. Pretend my thumb drive is a lighter. So a flame message is like when you light a lighter, typically you want to use a natural flame like a candle, and then you get like a note card or a piece of paper and you wave it over the smoke and then you read what's in the smoke. You can also just read like the smoke as it comes up, like if it comes off of incense, out of fires, things like that as well. I love flame messages. Deborah taught us that a long, long time ago, and I just loved it. It's so interesting what comes out of that. If you have the book on Lucky page 13, there's a whole list of divination methods in here. And there was a few that I was not familiar with, so I liked that. Um, Abacomancy, A-B-A-C-O, Abacomancy, Reading the Patterns in Dirt. And actually there's a book coming out, I can't remember who does it, on sacred dirt, so I'm looking forward to that. Let's see. I did not know that Chance Encounters with Animals was called Apantomancy, A-P-N-T-O. And then astrologomancy is the throwing and reading of dice or knuckle bones, which I thought was interesting because astrologus is also an herb, probably named after because it looks like the knuckle bones, if I had to make a guess. Then there's the regulars, astrology, augury, bibliomancy, which we do on our Facebook Lives quite a bit, cartomancy, the reading of playing cards, taromancy, claromancy, dowsing, Ifa, necromancy, numerology, umancy, which is when we talked about the eggs, pyromancy, reading flames. Here's one, rumpology, never heard of it, interpreting the impression and shape of the buttocks. So like I Googled it, I'll admit it, and it's a thing. I'm like, it made me want to go stand naked in the front of the mirror for about a half a second, but I haven't done it. Runecraft scrying, taromancy, and of course tasseomancy, which is the reading of tea leaves or coffee grounds. So on the note of tasseomancy, the lovely Daniela has a tasseomancy class in the works. So we go into the section on understanding the psychic senses, which I appreciate. He kind of touches on each of like some main ones throughout the book, so we have an idea when he references something. So, there's clairvoyance, that psychic ability to see beyond. Clairaudience, when you are psychic through what you hear. Clairsentience, being able to feel information, which I think is what a lot of people are. I have a touch of clairsentience. And then this next one has a different name. He calls it clairessence. I think that's it. Clairessence. I have always heard of it being called clairalient. But it's the ability to like smell things. And like for the longest time, I could never remember clairalient, so I called it clairsmelliance, just for fun. But eventually, I remembered it. But yeah, that's me. I have a touch of the clairalliance. Clairtangency, which is also known as psychometry. I did not know that word. Clairgustance, which is the ability to taste, and clairempathy, also simply known as empathy. So he touches on quite a few of the clairs as we move through. Under traditions and techniques, he says it's very important to know that there is no one way to throw or cast bones for divination. Also, in regards to cultural appropriation, it is very important to understand that while the origin and method of bone throwing might have been formulated by a certain group of people, bone throwing is not a closed practice or restricted to any one person. It is not tied to any one religion and can be practiced by anyone, regardless of race, gender, or creed. And methods of bone throwing and clairmancy vary drastically between individuals and also cultures. So I appreciate the fact that he put the bit in there about cultural appropriation right off the bat. Give me 2 seconds. I felt a little cough coming on there. All right. And then there's a whole way in here, he says, when not in use, you might want to keep your bones in a basket or box on your altar or keep them by your nightstand. Here's some few tips and tricks to help you get started and better enhance your readings. And then there's a whole selection of suggestions in here. Oh, and here's our little D&D die right there. Then we move into the first chapter, Clairmancy, the Art of Casting Lots. And of course, he reminds us that it's one of the oldest forms of divination. He says that some methods for today originated in West Africa, but they've been found all over the world. The next section talks about building your psychic arsenal. I'm hoping this warning won't show up. There we go. Building your psychic arsenal. So he talks about how to build your own kit, and he says when we think of bones, We picture animal or human skeletal remains. However, when using the word bones for clarimancy, we're referring to all the items that are cultivated for your bone throwing kit. While the majority of these items will be natural, such as bones, shells, roots, and crystals, they can also include other baubles and trinkets, such as dice, coin, keys, or even a porcelain doll arm. He says, yep, that's popular. And there's some examples on here. There's like a little Monopoly dog, you know, all sorts of suggestions in there. He says, when you're searching for bones, think of the intention that you're looking for and what will that bone represent. The majority of bones procured by oddity and occult stores are ethically sourced, but if you have any reservations, don't be afraid to ask. As you collect your bones, you should cleanse and consecrate them to remove their previous energy and debris and give them their magical and oracular purpose, which we're covering a little later in the book. Cleanse them by sprinkling salt and water, smoking them through incense and holding them in your hand. And then he says you can consecrate them either by naming each bone and giving it its function. For example, the snake vertebrae bone will represent change and transformation. The bones can then be added to your clarimancy kit. So reminding us that we can assign the meanings to what all those things represent. Let's see. I pull anything off of this page. He says that some things as examples can be bones, crystals, curios being coins, dice, keys, nuts like acorns, roots, seashells, things like that. Then he introduces us on how to build your clarimancy kit. And there's like a really great table of some things in here that you might want to include. Apology for the light down here, guys. And if you look like along the edge of the page, there's all these like ideas that go down the edge of the page as well. It includes common household items like random curios like chains, coffin nails, coins, cowrie shells, crucifix, things like that. Animal bones. Also gives you some suggested meanings for them. Then he has a whole section just on bone meanings. Like meanings as example, ankle bones represent mobility, goals, and the journey. Backbone and vertebrae are courage, backbone, and resolution. He has a penis bone, claws, talons, femur. There's a whole list and some suggestions for what those things mean. The next section is called Half In and Half Out in Maintaining Spiritual Balance. And he goes on to say that spiritual balance is extremely important if you're to have any success casting fortunes or performing any other type of divination or psychic work. You must be able to not only compartmentalize your intuition from reality, but also not let your ego get the best of you. Sometimes readers feel they need to prove to their client or their person that they're reading for that they're the real deal, causing them to make things up or add additional information for a flourish. Getting performative in a reading does not legitimize your skills, but actually makes the reading feel like a hoax. Take your time, look at what's tossed out before you, go over each one for their meaning and their partnerships with the other. So I don't know when we get into it, but there's a whole section in here too on like, you're not just reading, you're not just reading the bones and the curios and that themselves, but like you're reading where they fall in front of you. You're reading the distance between them. There's a lot that goes into it. But I appreciated that little paragraph in there about ego because we see that quite a bit. He goes in to talk about how to prepare for a reading, just like to prepare yourself, which is always important. Lay your protections. And actually he has a cleansing and consecration rite in here, which I thought was a very nice thing to add. Like any divination, you always want to do some sort of cleansing and clearing before you start, because you just never know what that other person's going to bring in with them. And there's actually a protection ritual listed in here as well. Oh, and that's the end of where we are. Like I said, it's a short book. We're going to pull it out over 3 Mondays. So when we come back, we'll be starting chapter 2, which is necromancy. Quick word on necromancy. Necromancy is any sort of the mancies that deal with the dead. And And honestly, like if you think of spiritualism is also a form of necromancy because you're receiving messages from ancestors and people and that have passed on. So don't think that like, don't come in it with the idea that necromancy is the idea that you're raising things from the dead or anything like that. We're going to dispel a lot of that when we come back next Monday. I don't have a calendar. One second. I think it's the 14th. It is. So on the 14th, when we come back, we will cover page 40 through page 75, and then the 21st, we will spend one session just working on through all the boards at the back of the book. So I'm pretty excited about that. So anyway, guys, thanks for joining in. Thanks for staying tuned while I do the pre-record for you, because Pathways will be closed tomorrow because we'll be doing eclipse stuff at home. So hope you have a wonderful day, and as always, thanks for your support. We appreciate you. Blessed be, blessed we. Bye for now.